I read the review, obviously, with interest. I mean, the essential findings are that the regulations relating to the organising of social gatherings was not breached, but social distance guidelines were breached for a minute. So, Mr. Hackett, could you outline what precisely was the breach of the social distancing guidelines?
So, Deputy, the guidance specifically was around the need to maintain 2 metres social distancing. The serious breach that we identified was the failure to do that, particularly around the time that the photograph was been taken.
So if in the photograph the people had been drinking champagne but had been 2 metres or more apart from each other, in your opinion, there would have been no breach of any guidelines whatsoever?
I think it would have caused reputational damage and would have been still a serious mistake.
But just to repeat the question, if they'd been standing 2 metres apart from the point of view of your report, there would have been no breach of any guidance or regulations?
Well, that's hypothetical, and so I'm not going to get drawn on that. They were standing within 2 metres, they were drinking alcohol, there was a photograph, the photograph was tweeted, all of those were wrong.
But just to confirm what you're saying, the precise breach of social distancing guidance that took place was the fact that they were less than 2 metres apart from each other?
That is
I think that's what the Secretary-General said.
No, but that's fair enough. That's the nature of the serious offence that we identified and described, yeah.
Okay, so just to move on to I think the report, the review is, puts a lot of weight on the idea that this was not an organised social gathering, because if it was, it would have been a breach of the regulations and a criminal matter. So was it a spontaneous event?
First of all, it wasn't an event. It was people at work, doing work, and in response to work, they were clearly happy and pleased when the outcome occurred, and the decision to convene a photograph and to bunch people up together was spontaneous, in my opinion, yeah.
It was spontaneous. So you referred earlier to the 2 people who were present, and to be clear, certainly from me, there's no criticism of those people whatsoever. But how did they know to be present? Because I think you've accepted that they weren't working on that day. How did they know to be present at the moment when the champagne corks popped and the picture was taken?
Well, I think, as I said, they had been important members of the team. One of them had just gone on maternity leave relatively recently. They were clearly aware of what time the result was expected to come through, because it was public knowledge. They had a lot of information and expertise that they wanted to share. I think they're to be admired for that. And therefore, they made a decision to come in themselves around that time.
And did they come in to do work?
They came in to be present when it was announced, and according to their own testimony, they came in to offer whatever advice they could if a second round was necessary.
The review says the review team is satisfied that the vast majority of those present attended the workplace in order to perform essential work-related tasks. So were they part of the vast majority, or are they part of the minority?
That's why it says the vast majority.
So they weren't there to do essential work-related tasks?
That's correct.
Okay. So they were there to celebrate the victory of the UN Security Council place?
Yeah, like, as I said earlier, Deputy, I'll be honest with you, I'm uncomfortable discussing 2 women on maternity leave.
To be clear, I'm not making any criticism of them whatsoever, but it goes to whether the event was organised or not organised.
I think it's been a difficult month for them, having them, carried through like this. They're far more junior than many other people in that picture. I think my own personal view is that having them interrogated or implicitly interrogated in this way calls into question some of the fundamental principles of our maternity policy and what we're trying to achieve. And I found that a difficult part of the review, and I find it difficult to have this conversation because of the position it puts them in.
Okay,
I would remind Deputy Murphy, and you were here at the start of our meeting, and I'm sure you are a member of other committees of the House, but I would remind you of the long-standing parliamentary practice to the effect that members shouldn't comment on or criticise or make any charges against any person outside the House or any official, either by way or otherwise, that might make that person in any way identifiable. You heard what the Secretary-General said.
No problem.
I would ask you to accept his bona fides on the matter.
Oh, that's no problem. And to be clear, and I stated at the start, I have no criticism whatsoever. I have no criticism bringing children into the workplace and so on. I don't have any of those criticisms whatsoever.
Okay.
Just related, there was an email from the Secretary-General sent at 5:16 on the 16th of June saying, Aoife, following our call earlier, or the Secretary-General Office, SG, Secretary-General, happy to watch the result down the back of the political open plan in the thick of it. The photograph took place, is that accurate to say that took place at the back of the political open plan?
That's correct.
So, how can you maintain that the event was spontaneous when an email referring to it was sent the day before?
My interpretation of that email is that he was indicating that when the results were coming through and in the aftermath, he intended joining staff for that part of the working day.
And you maintain that the event was not organised, it was spontaneous, despite the fact that there were people there who weren't there to be working, no criticism of the whatsoever, and the fact that an email refers to an event taking place at the place that it took place the day before.
I think it was part of the working day. The outcome of the vote was work, and there were a whole range of quite intense activity, work-related activity, that would have needed to happen in the immediate aftermath of that vote. So it wasn't an event, it was a work-related activity, and the Secretary-General made a decision that when that piece of work was taking place, i.e. them watching the results come through, he would be with them.
Okay, so they were drinking champagne while working?
The result of the work coming through, that he would be there for that, that's what that email refers to.
What type of sparkling wine was it?
You want me to answer that, Chair? I said earlier that there was alcohol served and the review did not find, or was not in a position to find, beyond that what the nature of the alcohol was, other than the fact that it was some form of sparkling wine.
Okay. And just finally, a question for Minister Coveney. Minister, earlier referred to the fact that you didn't delete any text messages in relation to this event. So certainly there was an article written that stated that you received a text message about it on the 29th of December 2021, but that when an FOI went in, which would have covered that period looking for any texts referring to this issue, that the FOI came back with no text. Do you have any idea how that happened?
Well, all I can say is I haven't deleted any texts and I've complied with the rules under FOI.
How then? Is that a mistake by someone in your department, or because
there were a lot of articles written by a lot of people.
The department said
that you well know.
The department stated that a comprehensive search of Mr. Coveney had found no messages pertaining to the incident. But you're saying your phone still contains a message that does relate to the incident.
No, I haven't deleted any texts,
Yeah.
and my understanding is that I've complied fully with my obligations under FOI in relation to this issue.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay.